It's Tuesday for you, probably while you're reading this, maybe, hopefully, you're watching this. Listening to this. Jeez, I did a double wrong. I said reading, then watching, then, and I pointed out my mistake twice. Anyways, this is episode. I don't know anymore. Um. Anyways, I just on a fun note, I have just moved over to Crunchyroll. um. I had Funimation, now I have Crunchyroll. They are merging. This is not sponsored. It should be sponsored, maybe. If you're listening Crunchyroll, I have 4 followers, 5. I have 5 people listening to this podcast, so you should sponsor us. Anyways, I'm not gonna be writing in that document today. I thought it'd be interesting just to talk about. I played Thirsty Sword Lesbians this weekend, and I have been running playtests for. I've been running sort of playthroughs for Murders and Mayhems, and what do you call that? What was the other game? Oh, I played Corruption, and I played Heist, and yeah, no, The Job. Sorry, not Heist, The Job. I always call it the Heist. I've been playing. I played 3 playtests the last couple of weeks at game groups. Corruption is the system that I utilize. It's a hit or miss with some people. Like, some people either really like it or some people really hate it. And for me, I like it a lot, but I can see why some people, not having very much of a fail component and progressive failure count getting worse as you progressively play through the game, because you make deals to get more dice, but that also makes your dice rolls harder. That's an interesting aspect of the game. And so some people like the game because it's like, okay, I will trade off getting more dice so I can keep playing, but I also understand that it's also going to make my game much harder to play. And so I've had this thought about maybe expanding on it or trying to build up on the corruption system, but then there's parts of me that go like, well, it's good the way it is. So it's been, I think when trying to decide what's a game that we're going to put our effort and time into, that's another discussion that we sort of think about is like, okay, so what really requires that? What do we decide is like, okay, this is a game that we really want to spend time on? Because we have running games like Irie, we have running games like Star Fury, and we have Rebel Stage coming up in Generations, and there's a lot of really interesting and unique games that we like, but how do we determine like what's the games that we're going to go after, the projects we want to really spend our time on? And I think I think Karen always says it, it's got to be it's got to have a hook. It's got to be unique. I can't remember what Karen always says to me. Karen always says this thing to me. They're always like, it's got to have it's got to have a hook, it's got to be unique, and it's got to be something else. I think I'm gonna have to ask Karen about that. But the whole point is that it really does have to have some sort of like teeth behind it, some sort of like je ne sais quoi, and it's got to have some sort of like, and it's something that we both look at and say that's an interesting and unique enough game for us to do. So that's how come Murders and Mayhems has moved from the column of this is a completed game to we are making this much more advanced and making this more complicated and making this more interesting. And we like Murders and Mayhems. So there's a couple of things that are going to be changing in the future. You're going to have life. So you can have life and you can get more life as you go through the game. There are havens. There was a issue that we had where people would drop on the chutes and ladders, and they would drop really far down, and it'd be like, well, what's the point of this? And so we're gonna have like a rising level thing where, okay, you drop to the most recently visited haven. So it is behooveful of some players to get to havens as quickly as possible so that we can rise and get to the end. There's also going to be a countdown component, so like it not only is it possible for all the players to die, but you only get so many rolls, and every couple of rolls you do as players determines a death. So after, I think it's going to be like 13 deaths in the game, then the game is over. So so there's going to be a track to try to determine how many deaths are in the game, and I think that's something that's interesting that we're going to have to build into it as well. We were actually talking about it on the last meeting, which is Murders and Mayhems was I drew a map originally, and then Caradwin just took the Chutes and Ladders map and just used it. So I was like, oh, how come there isn't 13 ladders and chutes? And it was like, oh, because Caradwin just used the Chutes and Ladders map. And we had a discussion about that, whether or not we should be making our own maps or whether we should be using the Chutes and Ladders map. And I think there is a definitive, we're going to use the base map, but I think there's also some room for us to design future maps of our own. So you like could play the basic game, but then we could make things that are interesting and have different maps that you could play with that either have more chutes or more ladders or whatever it is. So there's going to be some new killer components that are going to come up. There's going to be movement rules. There's going to be the idea that if you're not occupying the same space, you're not together. So your characters are always alone, because that's how it always feels like in the movies, right? Like when you're watching a horror movie, like you only get killed when you're by yourself. So that's like, except for like at the very end when everybody starts to coalesce into that last thing. Yeah, it's interesting that like, okay, yeah, you're by yourself, you can get attacked anytime. So the idea of like moving together is good, but it also is like, you always take the lowest roll. So there's going to be a component where you move together, but you always take the weakest of the rolls. We're also adding more dice components into the game, so D4s, D6s, and D8s are going to be utilized. And the notion is that there is a fail component in the D6s and the D8s, so depending on your action, depends on what type of dice you get to roll. So the GM is going to say, okay, that's pretty gosh darn risky, roll a D8. You get to move more. That allows you to like bridge more distance, but it also means you're going to be running more foul there's a higher possibility you're going to run into a killer. And also, the more risky you play, the more. So like as the game progresses, like, and you're trying to make sure you get past the deadline, the kill time, that you're going to become more and more risky, which is probably what we want to do. So D4s are less risky things, and then so there's no way you can fail on a D4, or like there's a 1 in 4, like a 25% chance, and then you do a D6, and then there's like 2 out of 6, and so there's a 33% chance of failure in that. And then I think it's going to be D8 is going to have either a 3 out of 8 or 4 out of 8, so like a 50% chance of failure. Like it's gonna be much, much, much harder to play. And I think that, and I like the idea that it's 8 D8 is D is 4, so 50%, 33%, or a 25% chance of failure. We've also thought about maybe not having a failure on the D4, but maybe it's not so much fun. So the D4 will have a 25% failure, 33% failure, and a 50% failure. So you really don't want to be rolling D8s, but you kind of want to be rolling D8s because you need to move fast. So the more you want to book it is what we're doing. So we're not doing the SRD today, yes, because I didn't do any work on the SRD. I've been working on Murders and Mayhems, and I've been working on Corruption. And the thought about, as much as Corruption is one of my favorite games, and I do like Corruption as a gamer designer, it was my first game I designed, I also realized that it does have its flaws, and I don't think it has the expandability or has a hook that really draws people into it. But I can tell you that Murders and Mayhems does, and I think that's one of the games that we are very excited to sort of release. How did the games go? Well, Murders and Mayhems went well. I mean, there was a lot of adjustments, and I was built for 13 ladders, 13 stairs, and initially on the gameplay it was that If you take a staircase, then a truth is revealed. If you hit a chute, a person dies. And we're gonna get that situated out. What we're gonna be doing is that if you take a staircase, a killer square is added or something. And if you take a chute, a killer square is revealed in the lowest section, like the nearest. So the highest player, the higher you climb, the more possibility of running into more killers. So the idea behind it is that if you decide that you fly up on a ladder, you will run into potentially a killer up there. So every time you take a ladder, it's just adding killers to the table. Every time you hit a chute, it's just revealing a killer on the table. And that allows you to and there's going to be a sneak rule that allow you to get past a killer, so you know how to maneuver around a killer. So you will have a thing where if you did to diminish your roll by 2, I think if you for every 2 movement you can squeak past the killer. But if you land on the killer square, you must stop. You'll get stopped regardless. So there's no way around it. But if you're passing a killer square and you're just running through, they stop you and you have to roll to try to escape. So the killer will always roll a d4. I think that's always the thing. The killer always moves very slowly. And you're okay rolling a d6 or a d8 or d4 if you want. Like, if you really want to try to risk it for the biscuit, you're going to roll the bigger number. But beware that the first 4 numbers on a d8 are auto failure. It doesn't matter even if the killer rolls a 2. If you roll a 4 on a d8, you lose. So that's not the best situation for you, but it might be a situation you might need to do if you're out of lives or you're not able to, you don't have escape weapons. And I think the difficulty rating will be based off of how many starting lives you get, and every time you land on Haven, you get a new life. Or we might put multiple Havens in the game, or a new Haven on every floor, and you could get multiple lives. So there is something about trying to get to Havens first because you want to live. So there could be that component as well in the game. So we haven't decided if that's going to be something. I haven't decided if that's going to be something in the design component, but I do like it. We are looking at doing another chapter of Irie this month. I still haven't decided what it's going to be. I have roughly 11 days to figure this out, so hopefully I will figure out in the next 11 days what Irie is. I think we'll be discussing the Irie chapter in the next upcoming podcast. So I think that's all. I just wanted to give you an update on what we've been working on and some of the projects we're looking at doing. And I think the next Tuesday podcast, you're going to hear us talk about the new Irie episode that will be released, which will be releasing 4 days from that date. So which we will have a new chapter, which will be chapter 4 of the Irie series. And keep a lookout to what we're working on. I think this is just an update on the projects we're doing. And now we talk a lot about design stuff, but I think in this one, I wanted to talk to you about the designs we're actually working on. And I hope you are having a nice week. And I will sign off now, I guess, unless there's... So if you like what we're doing and you want to continue, please hit like, hit subscribe, please follow us. I think this weekend you should be seeing an interview by Alex Dunn, who we will be talking about Dwarf Outpost, which is pretty exciting. I hope you all will tune in for that, and you all stay... Hope your D20s roll amazing and you do not roll ones this week. But I hope your rolls are amazing and you don't roll ones this week. That's what the thing is. You can really tell that I'm kind of out of it right now. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. See you all on this weekend for the Alex Dunn